Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech, where we break down the week's biggest stories. All right, here's what's on the docket. We're going to start with the two faces of AI, the incredible promise and, well, the pretty serious peril. Then we'll get practical with some AI tips you can use right in your pocket. After that, we're diving into key updates for your gear, think Spotify and the next iPhone. And we'll wrap things up with some big questions about where Apple and Tesla are headed next.
Okay, let's kick things off with what feels like the central conflict in tech right now. AI. It's moving at an absolutely breakneck pace. But here's the thing. It's being aimed in two completely different directions.
So on one side, you have this incredible, life-altering promise, right? We're talking about AI potentially tackling humanity's worst diseases. But on the flip side, it's posing a very real, very immediate threat to the entire business model that keeps journalism afloat. So let's start with the good news, shall we?
So Alphabet's Isomorphic Labs is working on something called in silico drug design. Now, what does that even mean? Well, think about how we've always made drugs. It's this super slow physical process, right? You tweak a molecule, you build it in a lab, you test it, and then you do it all over again. Isomorphic Labs is basically saying, what if we did all of that inside a computer? Run thousands of digital tests before we ever even think about building a single one in a real lab.
And this quote from their CEO, Demis Hassabis, really just lays out the sheer scale of their ambition. He's not talking about making things a little bit faster. He wants to take a process that takes years and crunch it down into a matter of months. We're talking about a fundamental, ground-up transformation of how we discover new medicines.
Now, to really get why AI is the game changer here, you got to wrap your head around the scale of this problem. Scientists estimate there are 10 to the power of 60. That's a 1 with 60 zeros after it. Possible molecules that could become drugs. That number is it's mind-bogglingly huge. You could never, ever search a space that vast physically. But for a generative AI, that's exactly what it's built for. It can explore that massive possibility space and find the most promising candidates.
And look, the ultimate goal here isn't just about finding one cure for one thing. The vision is to build a platform that can turn a disease like cancer from a terminal diagnosis into something manageable, a chronic condition you can live with a normal lifespan. It's an absolutely incredible vision. But, and this is a big but, that same powerful AI technology has a much darker, much more immediate impact on another industry.
And yeah, here's that darker side. You've got Penske Media. They publish huge names like Rolling Stone, and they are suing Google over its AI overviews. And the logic? It's painfully simple. If Google's AI just gives you the summary of an article right there on the search page, why would you ever click the link? And when you don't click, publishers lose traffic, they lose ad revenue, they lose affiliate income. Penske's already claiming their affiliate revenue is down by over a third. It's gotten so bad, the News Media Alliance is literally calling it the definition of theft. This is a fight for survival for them.
Okay, so we've talked about these huge, world-changing ideas. But how can you actually use this power? Let's bring AI down from the clouds and put it right in your pocket with a couple of really powerful and, honestly, pretty fun tools. You know, most people get pretty generic, kind of bland answers from ChatGPT because they just ask simple questions. But check this out. This 5-step structure, it basically unlocks what I'd call an expert mode. You assign it a role, you give it a clear goal, and, this is the absolute key, you force the AI to ask you clarifying questions before it even starts to answer. When you do that, the output just completely transforms. It stops being a search engine and becomes more like your own personal consultant, tailored exactly to what you need. All right, and now for something a little more playful. On the creative side of things, Google has this new AI image generator called Nano, and it is a ridiculously fun way to reimagine art. Get this, you can take a super simple drawing, like even a kid's sketch, and just prompt it with something like, reimagine this as a 3D toy, and boom, the AI spits out a professional-looking model. Or you can turn that same sketch into a photorealistic scene, or maybe a whimsical illustration for a storybook. It's just a fantastic way to team up with an AI and bring your creative ideas to life. Okay, let's shift gears. We've talked a lot about AI, so now let's get into the hardware we're all using every single day. There are some really big updates and even a few hidden features you're definitely going to want to know about.
All right, music fans, the day has finally come. After years, and I mean years of waiting, Spotify Lossless is finally rolling out for premium subscribers. And this is a massive jump in audio quality. See, standard streaming has to compress the music, and you lose some of the detail. But Lossless, using this 24-bit FLAC format, keeps all that original detail. The music just sounds clearer, richer, more dynamic. It's how it was meant to be heard. and you really need to listen to this part. There is a huge catch, and that catch is Bluetooth. The technology itself, just to send the signal wirelessly, has to compress the audio. So what does that mean? It means if you're listening with your AirPods or any other Bluetooth headphones, you're pretty much losing the whole benefit of lossless. To actually hear the difference, you've got to go old school, wired headphones, or use a speaker that connects with Spotify Connect over your Wi-Fi network.
And hey, while you're digging around in your settings, keep an eye out for other really useful features. There's multi-point pairing, which lets you connect to 2 devices at once, super handy. And look for something called side tone, which lets you hear your own voice a bit more clearly on calls so you're not shouting.
Next up, we've got a really fascinating story coming out of the smartphone world. It's one of those cases where what looks like a technical downgrade on paper is actually a giant leap forward in reality.
So here's the puzzle for you. The upcoming iPhone 17 Pro is rumored to have less optical zoom. We're talking 4x instead of the current 5x. Now, on paper, that sounds like a downgrade, right? But the real key here is the sensor, which is apparently jumping from 12 megapixels to a whopping 48. So what is really going on here?
Well, the answer is a clever technique called sensor cropping. Because that new 48-megapixel sensor is just so massive and packed with pixels, Apple can basically just use the middle section of it to create a zoomed-in photo. And because it's starting with so much information, that cropped image still has optical-level quality. It's way, way better than a traditional digital zoom.
So here's the result. At that 4x zoom, the new sensor is capturing 4 times more pixel information than the old one, and that allows for a brand new, super high-quality 8x zoom option and just way more detail across the board. So yeah, even though the number on the spec sheet looks smaller, it's actually a huge upgrade in both quality and versatility.
All right, time to look to the future with the rumor that's got a lot of people excited. Apple might, just might, be getting back into the Wi-Fi router game.
Now, for those of you who've been around a while, you'll remember Apple's airport routers. They were absolutely beloved because they were so simple and just worked. They were a staple for almost 20 years, and then Apple discontinued them back in 2018, right before mesh Wi-Fi systems really took off.
But here's why a comeback makes so much sense now. Apple is in a perfect position. They have their own custom chips now, like the new N1 wireless chip. They could create their own mesh Wi-Fi system that would integrate flawlessly with the entire Apple ecosystem. I mean, just imagine a router with that classic Apple "it just works" experience, giving you seamless connectivity for all your devices. It's a pretty compelling idea.
And for our final story today, we're going to tackle one of the biggest, most talked about questions hanging over Silicon Valley. What happens to Tesla? With or without Elon Musk?
This quote from Tesla's board chair, Robin Denholm, really cuts right to the heart of how the board sees things. She says, he's a generational leader. There aren't any other people out there like Elon. So you can see, they don't just view him as a CEO. To them, he's this unique, one-of-a-kind leader who's absolutely essential for driving the company's wild ambitions in AI and robotics.
But, and this is important, even though they're framing him as basically irreplaceable, the board has also gone on record to confirm that they do have a long-term succession plan in place. This is obviously a top question they get from investors, and they've made it clear they are actively preparing for what would hopefully be an orderly transition someday. And really, that just leaves us with this final, critical question. For a company that is so deeply tied to one person's vision, what actually happens when that generational leader eventually does step away? It's a huge challenge, and it's not just for Tesla. It's for any organization that's built around such an iconic central figure. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.